The man named Chang was swinging laps when I woke and came down to the kitchen. It took me a second to recognize it was him, but his distinctive rope belt was laid by his pants on a chair by the pool just off the kitchen. He was a very fast swimmer, very exuberant. Water splashed everywhere. I watched him for a little bit too long, then decided to try the door to the outside where we had come in with the car. It was open, and I took a few steps out, looked around. There was a security camera, red vampiric eye, and the garage door was closed. Perhaps it would open if I simply approached it, but what then? Perhaps Chang knew where Simon was. Perhaps he was right that I was better off in his hands. The cookies from last night were still there on a plate, and I sat and ate one. They tasted of wheatgrass, dry, not unpleasant crystals of sugar on top. For a moment I saw a horse in my mind, running very fast. Then a flicker of fire in the side of my vision, and then Chang appeared, bare-chested and toweling off, a rather intimidating form that he had held more sheepishly the night before.
I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd be up so early. I left my shirt over here.
He went to a tiny little door I had not perceived and took but a few moments before returning with a shirt he buttoned as he grabbed a kettle to fill the water at the sink.
Coffee? Or tea?
Coffee, perhaps. Thank you.
Sleep okay? Oh, that dragon, that tapestry in there. You know, it used to give me bad dreams when I was a child. I had it in my family since I don't know when. It would be in my nanny's room where I'd often sleep, and finally, waking in tears, I'd blame the dragon. And so they moved it to a guest room. No more bad dreams. So now it is in my house, in my guest room. But so far, no bad dreams. Although not many guests. Perhaps I was blaming it for nothing. Still, I like to check. Sugar? Cream?
I nodded no, but he still brought the little sugar pot, green, shaped like a rabbit. He took off its head and spooned sugar in his empty cup.
Have you ever been part of a secret society, Mr. Meadowvicious?
One cannot be a good member by admitting such thing, could one? But no, you mean like the Red Umbrella Society?
Yes. Well, sorry to jump in so fast.
He poured us both coffee.
You know, when I was a young man, perhaps I would have thought I'd be impervious to its kind of appeal, having been brought up with very connected people, very magnetic people who just change the temperature of a room just by coming in it. Sometimes cold, sometimes hot. All the little particles in the room, they change when someone like that comes in. It's really surprising. But of course, I was a fuck-up. So as I came of age, I noticed instead of making rooms colder or hotter as I got older, that is, as an adult, entering rooms, I was becoming more and more invisible. My parents, they retired. They passed away soon after, as if they decided it, like dying was a decision. Now, of course, wealth has its influence. I could delude myself that I had something there, but no amount buys heat or cool. But then just before I was going to lose hope, perhaps lose myself in drinking or drugs or I don't know, I met the man who I'd find out was in charge of the Red Umbrellas. Now, at first he came off as just an unremarkable snake oil salesman, and we talked about lotion ingredients for some reason. And this was at a party I'd held, one of my first as a very young man, and I don't even know to this day who invited him. Anyway, I always had dry skin, and I was applying some, and he started in on it. He knew a lot, it would seem, about herbal medicine, and he came to Taiwan for business. I hope I'm not being too circuitous with my story.
I sipped my coffee. To be honest, I wasn't listening very closely. I was still thinking about the horse running, the fire. Parker and Chang both had the same tiresome way of talking, but I assumed he would get to the point. Not at all. I am interested. Go on.
Well, shortly after, this man, I should say, not a young man, but impressively fit for his age, he went off into the party, a little crowded, and I had had a few drinks, I should say, so perhaps I was susceptible, but in any case, I lost track of him. And then in the common room, there was this commotion. A woman, she screamed, and a man threw another man against the wall, and there was He's just grizzly bearded like some kind of Canadian logger, though he's dressed in a tux like most of the guests. I saw him almost imperceptibly. I saw him smile at the other man, and he had fangs. Now, the other guests may not have seen it because as soon as I was close enough to see this, a whizzing sound and a knitting needle, one of my grandmother's from her collection, it just is stuck in the wall, mere inches from the man with these fangs. And I look across the room, and I saw the red umbrella man, who looked at me, and we had a moment of recognition. And then, old Grizzly Fangs, in a single bound, he burst through, and from our 2-story glass window out into the night with enough commotion to bring in all of our security detail and end the party in quite the scandalous way. Would you like more coffee?
Sure, thanks.
So, that's my origin story. I think perhaps other members of the RUS were brought in slowly. Promises of immortality, hints at first, then rituals. And he was a showman. Everyone likes a good story, don't they? But not with me. Now, with me, it was a little chit-chat about lotions, and then a man with fangs leaps from my 3rd-story window and disappears into the night. It took me many years before I conceived that perhaps it had all been a setup, a way to get me intrigued. And I never did see that grizzly man again. But I was too far in at that point, and I'd seen too much.
Chang paused meaningfully. I was getting the sense that he expected that I knew more than I knew, that I was, by my nature, appealing to some legendary image in his cultic group's mind. I see. Well, thank you for sharing. That is all very useful information. May I ask, do you know where Simon Drake is?
I'm not entirely sure. Your plane departed New York, correct? Were you not with him there? And as far as I know, he's with his grandmother, Ms. Blackall, as she goes by these days. A wonderful woman.
I read his expression. The voices counted the syllables and rhythm of his speech. He's telling the truth, they said. Mr. Chang. Chang, what is going on? What do you want with me?
Yes, I've done it again, haven't I? I'm trying to be transparent, but instead rambling, and so I'm not coming as a straight shooter. I'm sorry. Now, you have to understand, being in your presence makes me uncommonly nervous, even as I have been trained not to feel my nerves. It's stupid, really. Okay. It's as simple as this. The RUS has lost its leader, the Dowser, long ago, and then now recently deceased his protege. We have a voting body. We have a set of rules imparted by him, for good or ill. Some of us now suspicious of what we've been taught, but nevertheless, in order to lead the RUS, one of us must be endowed by one of you, an immortal one. We must present to the governing body with one of you. And I'm asking you, as Parker may perhaps have been trying to do, as Mrs. Blackall will surely do with Simon, to consider accompanying me, to hear my case, however poorly I am presenting it.
I see. Okay, I don't see, but what was this about protecting me then?
Well, that's where it gets a little more complicated. Now, the RUS is split into factions. One desires to continue the traditions set forth, to continue the work which was intended to understand immortality.
And the other faction?
Well, back to the old ways, I'm afraid. The sword and not the umbrella.
The window. I saw Simon's window shattered into the blackness of Central Park. I thought of the story he had just told me. No relationship, surely, but I was suddenly petrified to think that Simon was dead, that Parker didn't know what he was talking about. So, what does Parker have to do with all this, then?
Well, perhaps you may know more than I do. Parker, he's always just been a very difficult read. He's caused a lot of trouble with the RUS in the past. Kept around because his twin brother is, or was, the leader. the de facto head, rather a pain. That plane is technically mine, and I'm not sure if Parker might not have remembered it. He has a tendency of pilfering and taking things that weren't his, including large sums of money. So I felt like, when I got the intel that it was heading to my part of the world, I might as well report it to the police, and well, that's when I saw the security footage that you were with them. And I couldn't believe my luck.
Oh, your luck, why is that?
Because you're the one I'm looking for. You're the black sheep, Mr. Nettovicious, like me. I think perhaps we're both trying to prove that we belong, or don't, as it were. Now, I believe if you get to know me, you'll see our aim is most likely the same. Just to understand and not to force anything. Now, you say you have not been part of a secret society, and that's fine. But I know, we all know, that there has been a reassembling. That there once was a collective of vampires, and that it is here anew, thankfully, and that it came to stop the presence that has infiltrated, that has corrupted the RUS, the so-named originator, as we've heard your kind call him. We need your wisdom, you see, and your guidance, and you may need our protection.
No comment, said the voices. Chang brought me to his garden then, and informed me he needed to take a few calls and that we could have lunch in a few. Then he would accept whatever decision I made, that he could get me a private plane, a different one, and it would fly me wherever I wanted to go. But he hoped he would have the chance to speak a little less unemotionally, to listen to what I have to say if I would. The garden was not unlike a Florentine garden I'd once visited. There were decidedly authentic statues and beautiful ornate vases that, if they were reproductions, they were excellently done. A large fountain with koi, all of them white, was in the center with a mermaid statue that looked more contemporary. It was brisk out, but I had too many thoughts to consider the cold. I had goosebumps, interestingly, which I've seldom had, which made me feel alert. I sat on the edge of the fountain and looked at the color of water. In that moment, everything felt irrevocably lost. I can't remember how it started exactly. Perhaps it was a silly bit of imagining. As my reflection rippled on the dark water below, I saw my face much more aged, and with a sinister determination, a determination I'd never truly seen in myself. Or perhaps it was fed by a moment before, as I looked around at the manicured, supposedly splendid garden, and how it felt like a betrayal of everything that the fountain encompassed in the rainforest. How little I should be trusting this man, and yet how trusting I could be. How my naivete, or perhaps weakness, was just to assume others had plans, and that any plan was better than no plan. No plan, the voices shook their head. I felt a little tremble. And then, the voices, they were gone, swallowed like Dracula and Agatha into some kind of abyss. I was lost without them, but I knew that they were only protecting themselves. Something sinister was rising, but unmistakably it was a part of myself. They were simply making room. I shook. I trembled suddenly, a wind, but also I recognized how foolish I'd been in Lucy's thrall. What a certain selfish entity Dracunian surely was. Incurable, a sociopath, as she said. And she, no better by association, projecting her own narcissism on him. I looked at myself in the reflection. I was there, but I never found myself beautiful. I never found myself much of anything. I never considered anything but to understand the universe. Ha! And any understanding was only reverence, and art was simply an acknowledgement of that process. I did not want to control others. Agatha did, blessed as she was with talents. I had only recoiled from that instinct of hers. Now I could see my own blindness to all those around me who carried similar traits. Why should I not seize, control, if only to balance out the game? Of course. Why had I Had no voice all this time. Struggled so much self-hatred, frankly, disgust. But an inability to recognize how much I hated my sister's dominant traits, even as I loved her soul, that soul that was imprisoned by some strange beliefs. I barely listened to Chang at lunch. I spoke little. I was cryptic, insisted on needing more time. I found myself smiling at him, even laughing a little, unlike me. I watched it all from outside myself. All the while the image of the dragon in my room appeared to me. And the dream, the bad dreams, I was entirely sure what I would do. Gleefully, like a child discovering the power of a lit match. Tonight, a new me will be born. In the distance, I thought I heard the voices say, "Are you sure?" I went to sleep easily. Inside the dreamscape, I was more awake than I'd ever been. I was inside myself, inside the anger. Or perhaps it was only my will. I beckoned the dragon down from their frame. It was small, and its flames were not unlike bunnies. It led me out to a door that wasn't there before. Outside, it opened into a labyrinthian home. But that was not the case. The feeling only was of a labyrinth. What it was grandmother's house. I could feel what it felt like to be in his grandmother's house. It threatened with grace. Every little knick-knack and frame, every little candle holder distorted like a funhouse mirror. The dragon even felt its power. I could see its eyes, how like a puppy dog it wanted to serve me, to set it free. We spoke only with our eyes, for I knew how important it was to be quiet in my approach. Inside his room, the dragon swam and hovered over a crib in the corner. His baby self was there, a little prince being cooked alive, I could see, by the imposed expectation of generations upon generations of vainglorious expansion of wealth, as comforting as it was obscene. For a moment I felt a tinge of guilt. The dragon would feast. The dragon would terrify the child. Whisper in its ear of the abyss his parents, his grandparents were thrusting him towards, without a plan, with only an expectation to buttress all of their expectations, like an awaited celestial heaven in human form. They were not the gods. He was the god, and would be expected to know all, to see all. And should he fail, his failure would be a golden lesson for the good of the greater cause. For tradition. I saw the dragon then take its own tail into its mouth, and then it was spinning unnaturally fast. I could feel the room shake. A vortex was opening, and if I wanted, I could glimpse. That's what it was telling me. We're in here, said the voices. I could see them in the shapes of people, people that look like me, people that look like me, but not like me. Alternate dimensions, human, also human and lovely. And in the distance, Bunny, being chased by a wolf. No, this form was only because I was here. I am better not knowing, but I also must be stronger. That is also why I am here. I looked over at the bed where adult Chang was laying. He turned his head, and there I saw his neck. And then I felt my fangs grow. But in the dreamscape, they hurt when they came out. A sweet pain. And before I could reckon with what I was doing, I sunk my teeth into his neck and drank. I drank like I'd never drunk blood before. And that is when I woke. And as soon as I could focus my eyes, it was indeed true what I was seeing. Across from me on the tapestry, was only blank space. Across from me was no dragon. I heard the voices from deep within me. And that was when I ran to the bathroom and threw up. And when I opened my eyes to see the color of water, it was crimson. The next I could remember feeling a bit like myself again. I was back at the fountain, and I could not remember if what had happened had indeed happened, or if I had dreamed it. Was the dragon really gone from the tapestry? I had to check, so I made my way back to my room and threw the door open, and the dragon was there. I sighed with relief. Then I was back at the fountain, same view, the fountain, the same feelings, deja vu. And then Chang was calling me. We had lunch. I did not listen much, but I listened a little better this time.
What do you know of the Ouroboros, Mr. Nettovicious?
Chang asked. Like your ring, I said.
Yes.
Chang fiddled with it, looking absent-mindedly out. For a moment I felt a splitting headache, but then he stopped moving it and my headache stopped too.
What do you think is more disturbing? A barely open door or a closed one?
Disturbing? How do you mean?
Symbolically speaking, like someone forgot to close it, but they meant to, and it piques your curiosity like a small child looking at it. But a closed one, there's something shameful about it. Some families, they lived in homes without doors for centuries.
I couldn't remember if Chang had been speaking in such riddles before.
Sorry. I don't know why I asked you that. I slept very badly. You haven't said much, which is all right. But I'd very much like to know if you think I could count on you to, that is, to consider vouching for me.
Then I was back in my room. The dragon called to me. I went to sleep. Again. Over the crib. Oh, I see I can go in. Agatha, she sees me. She warns me. I fall backwards. Chang is sleeping. He's about to wake. Like a feral cat, I pounce on him. Dig and drink. Dig and drink. Wake. Dragon is gone. Purge. Crimson. I'm at the fountain. The fountain's water is red. Or is it? Chang is calling me for lunch.
Consider vouching for me.
And what would that entail, ultimately?
Ultimately is the point. I would be the first, unless Simon Drake was the one chosen, in which case he could recommend me as the first, since it is not necessary for him, that is.
I was there already. The RUS, a conference room full of middle-aged and elderly men and women bleeding out from their necks, all of them slowly dying, none of them joining our ranks. A cult with a suicide pact. Simon barges in.
Netto, what have you done?
I notice his grandmother is there. I hadn't realized. She reaches up to stroke her grandson's face. I wake. Sweat on my brow. I can feel my body now. I can feel the dimensionality of everything around me. Confusingly, but real. What? A dream. A dream within a dream. I dress and go quickly down the stairs. The cookies are still there, uneaten. Chang is not here swimming laps. He never had been. I open the door to the garage. There is no camera. I walk through to a far door. It takes me to a garden, not too dissimilar to my dream. I find the wall. I climb it. I land on the other side. Walk through a person's garden who is having breakfast. They look at me incredulous. I wave and walk towards their driveway to the street, and I start walking rather quickly. Good morning, say the voices in unison. I reach an above-ground train station. I notice one of them has indication for the airport. I jump on a train, standing with a horde of business people heading to work. They barely look at me. I reach inside my bunny backpack and feel that the tail of Barnacle Harry is still there. Also some cash, my passport. I arrive at the airport. I change over the cash I have. Luckily, everyone seems to speak English. I sit at an American-style diner and order some coffee, some eggs. There is a TV, and on the news there is a war. And for a moment I gasp, because behind the TV set, reflecting in the mirror, is the dragon from my room, across from me on a wall. It is the exact same representation, only encased in glass. Which is the original? I close my eyes tight, but I am here, just drinking coffee. I will tell you how it goes.
Voltea. 1, 5.